And welcome back to JKLive here at Citizen Television. Great conversation. I told you, two outspoken senators, Ledama Olekina from Narok and Samson Cherargei from Nandi County. Senator Ledama, let me ask you this. The president clearly has said no handshake.
We don't care about handshake. Why should we have handshake? You know, the thing that people don't understand, and I don't know how I can drill this into their medulla oblongata, especially my brother here, is that we are not in a parliamentary system. We're not in a Westminster system of governance. You know, we don't care about handshake. What we want is, and what I'm pleading, is that Parliament can take its role as an oversight body to oversight an executive, you know, and judiciary to do its work. Those are the things.
Are you ready to play the opposition?
What do you mean opposition? I'm willing to oversight the government. I'm willing to make sure that I correct, I scrutinize, and I make sure that when they are wrong, I tell them straight in their face that this is wrong. The policies they're coming up with, I'm telling them they are wrong. You cannot introduce GMO. My brother here talked about fertilizer. A cabinet secretary who is still a cabinet secretary right now said that, no, we got that for free. Okay, so who is telling the truth? You know, so the thing is, and this is why I said to you, Jeff, that for me, I'm just holding my horses. You know, for a couple of months, I want to see them having the government completely. I want to see them with all their CSs. I want to see them with all their PSs. I'm glad the court has put a halt on CSs, you know. Then from there, we start working in committees. We want to go back and scrutinize their policies. We want to be able to see, because we will question, we will make sure we tell the public, you know, whether the DPP, whether the ESCC or the criminal justice take the due course of the law. I will do my job as Senator Ledama Olekina because I'm accountable to the people of Kenya. I'm first accountable to the people of Narok, and by a larger extent, under Article 96 of the Constitution, to the people of Kenya. So I'll do my job. And I expect that my colleague here will do it. You know, I mean, he shouldn't be talking as if he's holding brief for the president.
Senator Cherargei, let me ask you this.
He's a senator.
Yes, let me ask you this, Senator.
Yes, sir.
How does President Ruto reach out to the 6.9 million people who didn't vote for him and the 8 million people in general who didn't vote at all? How does he reach out?
First things first, there is a saying that in leadership, you must make a decision. I agree with Senator Ledama Olekina, but he looks like he's reading from different script. When the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and myself pointed out in Eldoret that when the PSS and CSS would be appointed, we shall appoint the loyalists and people who are loyal to President William Ruto and who believe in his vision and mission. But the biggest people who are making noise are mostly his people. But I'm happy today he has put that discussion to rest by saying they will be comfortable, they don't want a handshake, they will always oversight the government. And that is what the law provides. Under Article 95, 96 of the Constitution of Kenya, this gentleman has a right as a parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. So, Jeff, another second point. The president, in fact, is it the third or fourth point? He has visited Homa Bay. Homa Bay in itself did not vote for William Ruto, largely. I'm not saying all of them.
Correct.
But he visited them and assured that when it comes to development, it will be done equitably and equally across the country. And that is the only way, Jeff, that the president will reach to the other Kenyan 6.9 million and 8 million who did not vote or who voted for Azimio One Kenya Alliance. And the president has assured that. But when it comes to the appointments, of course, anybody, even if they had won the election, they would have rewarded their loyalists. So there is no offense in rewarding the loyalists. And I agree with Senator Ledama Olekina, the president himself. And I think people should remove this notion. In an open democracy, in principles of democracy, it's important to have a vibrant and opposition, because, or minority, I know it's not comfortable with the word opposition, but minority, so that the check and balances is part of the growth of democracy. So that is how those voices who are divergent will have opportunity and inform and shape the policy and the government of Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto. So I want to assure the country that when this matter, I've heard him talking about, he has raised a lot of issues. I was also trying to follow him, but I only caught him. He has raised the issue of CS. I've seen the Law Society of Kenya went to court. Law Society, I'm a member of LSK. They never consulted me. There has never been a AGM or any other form to call us as members of LSK to go and decide whether to move to court. But that is beside the point. Sure. I don't know whether they have a locus standi, but of course under the law, any Kenyan can move to protect Constitution and Article 3. The point is that the CS, this matter, I think the Attorney General and the government will appeal because Chief Administrative Secretaries, you remember the ruling of the court before when retired President Uhuru Kenyatta appointed CS. Some individuals went to court. The court said you can regularize. And that is why the PAC went and did public participation. But I don't know why all of a sudden LSK and other individuals decided to go to court without allowing the Public Service Commission to finish public participation. And inform, if Kenyans did not want the Chief Administrative Secretary, allow at least the PAC to inform. But I timed that this petition or this matter that went to court is ill-intentioned. It made in bad faith. Because in any case, these Chief Administrative Secretaries, we want a few young people, the hustlers, Mama Mboga, Boda, to be CAS so that they can be given capacity building to, in future, to become PSS, to become leaders, and to become cabinet secretaries. That is the essence of Chief Administrative Secretary. So I hope the courts, I've not read the substrat of that matter, but I think when it comes to that decision that the court have given, I don't know whether it was an ex parte orders that were just given to the petitioners, but I believe that we need Chief Administrative Secretaries because it will assist ease of running government. Because you have a PS and CS. And as a member of LSK, you were not informed? We were not aware. We just went to, and you know, by the way, this is not the time the LSK has taken a position. You remember during the presidential petition, they were supporting Azimio One Kenya Alliance. Yet the membership of LSK, both sides, as both people in Kenya Kwanza and Azimio One Kenya Alliance. So I don't know what informs some of the decisions that they made. But if they are saying they are doing it on behalf of the public, who are these public? Who are these public that they are working for? They are working for this. Are you for or against CAS, as you were saying earlier on?
No, I think now that you've brought the issue, I think for me, we have got to let the courts do their job. And I think once the court has already suspended that, that matter should rest. It shouldn't be appealed. Because to be honest with you, why? Why are we creating more jobs to reward politicians who are rejected by the people? Because you look at the previous administration, I was very clear, even during the previous administration. Why do we reward, members of the Jubilee administration who went to the people to seek to be able to represent them, and the people said no? I think we have to be comfortable with what we've done. I've seen second-term governors now seeking positions as PSs, as some of them will be wanting to seek position as CSs. Why? Let's give other Kenyans an opportunity. And I have no beef with President Ruto appointing his loyalists. I mean, that's his own prerogative. Those are the people who he said he was going to reward. He's good at that. I've got no beef with that. The only problem that I see is that, one, very soon, with the statements that they are both making, the president and his deputy, no one will respect two things. No one will respect any agreements which are made in this country. I think we saw that happening also in the National Assembly with Speaker, what's his name, Wetangula. We are seeing the statements which are being made by the Deputy President. Kenya will be a better country when we allow this democracy to be able to prevail. Everyone was happy. No one went to the streets. People accepted the outcomes, whether they agreed with the results or not. We move on. Right now, the moment that we tell Kenyans it is time to work, let us go and show that. Let us demonstrate. What Cheryl Gay and myself should be doing is we should be scrutinizing legislative proposals which are there. In the last parliament, we had so many legislative proposals that did not make it to be law. we should be actually looking at them to see how they can better serve the 47 million people whom we represent in the Senate.
Senator, by the way, you are the one who was very outspoken. I think it was last week when you were saying young people need to take over.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to repeat that.
And be specific.
Let me tell
ODM issues.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
No. It's not even ODM issues. I'll put it.
Correct.
I'll put it this way. You know, you might say correct or you might agree with him or what, but this is what I'm calling upon. I'm calling upon Kenyans, young Kenyans, to be able to demand what is rightfully theirs. I'm asking Kenyans to be able to say, you, Mr. Politician, you promised me this, you must deliver. That is the only time that we'll be able to have a progressive democracy. But what is happening is that, I think Waswahili husema, msitu ni ule, ama nyani ni wale tu kwa ile msitu, whatever. Ni sawa tu. Oh, I don't know Swahili that much. But the truth of the matter is, I think it's time now that we, the younger generation in this country, you know, who make up almost 80% of the population, it is about time that you now start engaging as politicians on issue-based politics, but not the stories of failed promises.
But I'm talking about you specifically saying, you know...
Oh, yes, I did. I did.
Babu win?
I did. And I will be very honest. I did. And I still stand by what I said. You know, that we fought so hard for our part of the coalition. I'm sure other young people did. But sometimes there are certain things, there are certain decisions which are made which are actually retrogressive. Because if you look at the issue of nomination as an example, if you look at Narok County and Kajiado County, the Jubilee political party brought somebody from Nakuru who was a sitting MCA. You know, they denied the women of Narok an opportunity. They denied the youth of Narok an opportunity. I said to Azimio, this is wrong. I said to Jubilee, I remember calling Jeremiah Kioni and saying, this is wrong. You know, that person should not be allowed to sit there. You know, I hear also that in Kajiado, they brought in somebody from Mandera. What about the women in Kajiado? What about the youth and women in Narok and Kajiado? So for me, Jeff, it doesn't matter whether we belong to the same party. If you are wrong, you are wrong, and I'll tell it to you.
And you'll tell your party leaders?
Of course. Of course. Why would I not do that? I think, you see, one thing about my party leader, which I give him a lot of credit for it, he is extremely magnanimous, you know, and he is willing to listen. Whenever anyone makes a mistake, he says, okay, if this is a mistake, we'll correct it. And he has corrected it severally. So really, you know, people, you know, and I think sometimes why we have a lot of problems in ODM and also in Azimio is because we allow democracy to prevail. But where these guys are, my friend, it's an iron fist. It is either this way or the highway.
No,
it's that simple.
It's misleading. Let me sit properly so that I handle him properly.
Yes.
One thing, by the way, and I want to congratulate Ledamo Lekina. When with him and Babu, they decided to face Babu.
And trust me, we are the future.
And, yes.
Trust me.
Of course. When they,
and I'm glad you said, of course.
Senator Ledama and Babu faced Baba. And courtesy of his fight is now deputy minority leader in the Senate.
Whip.
Deputy minority whip, sorry. So he's fought, and I think Babu is going for something else. You know, in ODM, they believe in...
You don't know ODM.
Some of us used to be in ODM in 2007. Before you came from America.
You are a baby. Come on, look at him. No. He was selling milk. He was hawking milk.
Some of us were in ODM those days.
Yes.
So we know what happens in ODM. By the way, when you look leaders that have been nurtured and crowed within UDA and Kenya Kwanza, a number of them are youthful. As to oppose, and we are happy. Even when Senator Ledamo Lekina came out, some of us supported because also we believe in youthful leadership. And I give credit to Dr. William Samoei Ruto. He has ensured, even during nomination, when some individuals wanted to mistreat the young people, women, people living with disability, he always said no. And that is why we have quite a number of women that were elected under UDA in government, in governor, sorry. The women that were elected, a number of them, majority comes from the UDA and Kenya Kwanza. So I agree with him that we need to grow the future. Because leadership is about handing over. From where I come from is the source of champions, and we pride ourselves in athletics. You know, I'm a neighbor to Eliud Kipchoge.
Like immediate neighbor? Like...
Yes, tunaombana chumvi. So now, you know, you give the next baton to another person. Yeah. So that should be a leadership, and I agree with him. Is
this the new face of the opposition? Is Senator Ledamba the new face?
I have seen Kalonzo Musyoka, and I've seen Baba regaining his position today. I see him in Bambungala Mwanai. These guys wanted to help Baba, and I think Baba has slept in and noticed the young man.
No.
Jeff. Because we have also seen Kalonzo Musyoka coming out strongly. You saw the statement about GMO. You saw Baba today questioning the high cost of living. Right. We have seen Ledama also questioning more than the floor of the House. And I think this is different for us, is what the President, Dr. William Ruto, agrees with, that let us engage and criticize in a constructive manner and a vibrant opposition, because that's how our democracy will function. So I think when it comes to all these issues that Senator Ledama, and I'm happy, I'll be excited to see him, I will serve as Deputy Minority Whip, because I know he's passionate. In the last Senate, he always used to come to Senate. He used to sit. You know, there are people, and I don't want to cast aspersions, that cannot sit even beyond five minutes in the chamber. And we know a number of them I don't want to name. But Senator Ledama could engage, could stay. And I remember during the revenue formula, we were together trying to approach bipartisan. So I hope also and wish him well as he serves as a Deputy Minority Whip, so that we can see, and as in the backbench, and ordinary members of the Senate, ranking members, we shall ensure we work together. You know, by the way...
can you engage me for a moment? You said there's some senators who come in for 5 minutes and then they take off, or...?
Yeah, they were never elected. They were never elected. So they are at home. They are taking care of what they used to be.
Let me, you know, the problem with this guy is that he doesn't start a statement and finish. I don't know what he's afraid of. If he's referring to Gideon Moi has always said it very clearly that, and which I agree with him, that in the Senate we don't only work in plenary, we work in committees.
Yes.
So he might have chosen to work in committees as well, you know, and he did a good job. Credit to him. He was the chair of ICT, and then later on I think he came to chair security. But the truth of the matter is, it is now time for the younger generation to be able to take their place in this country. And my appeal to the younger generation is this. You know, you now need to smell the coffee. You need to get up. You know, there's nothing you're going to be able to get when you sit down and expect manna from heaven. You need to ask the tough questions. We were promised unga. You need to remember to say, okay, let's give them. And Kenyans, please, let's give this government 2 more months. So they have finished 1 month. Let's give them 2 more months. Let them set up. Now we need to start taking them to task. We want unga to come down to 70 shillings. We want fuel prices to come down. We want to be able to see people earning more money. It is only Kenya where teachers, you know, earn peanuts. It is only Kenya where the security operators earn peanuts. We want to see this issue of affordable housing that the president talked about. We want to see the police houses being built and being given. Not like the other administration where the police houses were built and they were not given. We want to see them being given proper uniforms, not some uniforms where when you wash them in 2 days in Araruka. You know, seriously, we need to be honest with each other. And I think the moment we start being honest with each other in this country is the day when the younger generation, the youth, will stand up and say, enough is enough. It is now time for us to be able to prepare our future. Because let me tell you, when you traverse this country, and particularly where my good friend come from, you know, we've got huge chunks of lands which are owned by multinational corporations. You know, the fewer people who are of his age, you know, own very few acres of land. We want to hear policies from this government on how we can reclaim some of that land to be able to be allocated to people, not to be encroaching into other people's territories or forests, you know. So we need to ask those tough questions. And the moment we ask those tough questions, Jeff, is the moment we'll see progress. Let us not bootlick. Let us not become an extension of the executive. William Ruto has to become president. He will bring a budget. We will look at it. But let us not clap our hands and say, hooray, you've done very, very good. No, he has not done anything, you know. And I just want to beseech my brother here that we take our position, just like we did during the revenue formula. Nothing stopped us from taking that position. He will not be de-whipped. He just said he's a ranking member and he's a backbencher. You will not be de-whipped. You will continue doing your job. But the truth of the matter is that look at what is happening in Kenya right now. You know, when I watch Citizen TV, sometimes I cry. You know, yesterday you showed us footage of people who are starving, okay, in Kitui. I was in Kajiado County yesterday. I was praying to God and say, please remember us. If you look at Marsabit County, what is happening? You know, if you look at Wajir, you know, look at Samburu County, the rains are not there. I would hope that the president would say, every Friday we close shop, once a month, let's go and plant trees. You know, let's protect our environment. I'm happy to hear that he's talking about the issues of climate change. But let us not preach water and drink wine. You know, we need to be very, very...
You talk about the drought, right? And it's getting out of control.
It is bad.
Don't you think GMOs will help?
Hell no. Hell no. No. They will bring toxicity into our soil. They will make sure that even the nutritional value of the food you'll be eating, it will be tasteless. We don't want just to be able to fill our tummies. We want to be healthy. You know, we don't want to be resistant to antibiotics, you know, or get, you know, allergies and everything. No. What we need to do, if they really must bring GMO, because what they want, they will do it. Can they spend at least 2 years educating Kenyans that the level of cancer will go high? You know, when you talk about GMO in the first world, you know, the healthcare system is good. Can we just be a little bit objective and we look at things in a rather bigger perspective and look at the consequences? You know, if Jeff, and this makes me happy, if we are talking about legalizing marijuana and growing hemp in terms of, you know, for commercial purposes, you know, for medicinal purposes, hemp. I've got some shoes, beautiful shoes made out of hemp products. I've got shirts made out of hemp product. If we are talking about something like that, you know, that will make sense. If we are talking about utilizing areas where we said we have how many thousand acres in Galana, Kolada, if we are actually thinking of going through that and finalizing, if we are talking about reviving the Amora, Komarar dams so that they can be able to help people. If we are talking about tapping into the billions of water, liters of water, which were discovered somewhere in Turkana, we will be talking. But if we are going and making some populist statements that this government, you will not be arrested on Friday, this government, this and this will not happen, I mean, seriously, you know, tell us something else. You know, not just things that you know people want to hear. Senator, tell us real things.
So go on. You were smiling there about the hemp and the...
He loves it.
It looks nice.
It's already high.
I think you should look for Wajakoya. They can be...
No. Those are two. Those are two different things.
Issues of marijuana,
those are two different things. I mean, I talked about hemp.
Correct.
Oh, sorry.
I talked about commercialization of hemp.
So what Senator Ledama said is what is in pipeline, and we agree with him that he reminds the government, because on the issue of young people, the president, even in the State of the Nation address, talk about 50 billion for Hustlers Fund. He's talking about taking austerity measures, slashing 300 billion. He's talking about that the country is in a public, and you ask him about the depleted economy. Because Kenya now is 10 trillion public debt. And myself, I don't know, on the 2 occasions when he raised the ceiling of the debt, I think we voted against.
Both of you?
I think
so. No, let us be honest. I didn't vote against it.
You didn't vote against it?
You did not vote?
No. I actually, no, on the first occasion I did.
Yes.
But on the second, I voted to increase the debt ceiling.
Okay.
And you voted against it?
I voted against it on both occasions.
Let's just be honest.
We were 7 in the first instance when they were raising. So the issue of public debts, the 10 trillion that needs to be addressed, the issue of Hustlers Fund of 50 billion, taking austerity measures of 300 billion, I agree with him. that all this must be taken care of so that at least our slogan during campaigns is kazi ni kazi, pesa mfukoni. And I don't think we have lost track. We shall ensure your people in Narok have the money in pocket. And I agree with you that Kenyans need circulation money. Because at the end of the day, Jeff, most Kenyans cannot afford a meal. Most young people are looking for a job. I can tell you, myself and Senator Ledama, when you come to our offices, you will think we are employment bureaus. Because there are so many CVs. How do we ensure these Kenyans have opportunity? Jeff, you have heard many Kenyans and you have been covering these stories, and it's important you're informing the country through the Citizen TV on Kenyans who are dying in Middle East. Agencies have become corrupt. They are taking our children, Jeff, and no one is doing something about it. So at the end of the day, it's about the desperation. But looking at the inside, it is the same. By the way, tea and coffee, the foreign exchange earner has superseded some of them. And that is why the president is keen, and I would have expected Senator Ledama to laud because he has many friends abroad, the issue of diaspora factor. And I'll be bringing an amendment. You remember we tried and brought it with Kangata, but because of time, the current governor of Murang'a, we were overtaken by time on how issues of renewal of passport, ID, there are many challenges when you go to Kenyans living abroad, on how they can access some of these basic services, Uduma number, and many others. So by extent, I agree that most of these issues need to be handled, but in the bottom line is fixing the economy. If we succeed in fixing the economy, the cost of living will come down, and Senator Ledama and his colleagues will have less work of oversight. Because when everybody is comfortable, there is money in our pockets.
Very sad. It's very sad that he says that. His mandate is to oversight.
By the way, you don't need to make stomach noise to do oversight. The way you have said, you don't need to be in plenary in Senate to show that you are working. You can work in a committee. So I'm just saying, in a similar version, you can still do the same thing, but in a different way.
Sure. We need to get to the magic wall in a moment just to see what's, because there's lots of response, huh? There's lots of response from our viewers. Okay. Let's see what they have to say.
I thought from Monica.
Plenty of feedback from all over the place.
Big screens.
Chesanai says, ask the panelists, in the event a public official is implicated in a corruption case, should the taxman evidentiary standard be the art of on a balance of probability and not that of beyond reasonable doubt?
I think what he's asking is that, because he's talking about two different things.
Right.
You know, you've been implicated.
Yes, as a public
I think we've got to allow the due process of the law to take place. You know, you've got to be taken to court. Once you're taken to court, you are found guilty, then you have to pay for it. But now when you bring in two elements, two legal jargons of beyond reasonable doubt and balance of probability, I think that would be something that the court should determine, depending on the implications.
Good. More tweets. Tony Manyara Mugira is a lawyer, LLB like you.
And on that, can I respond that one quickly?
Okay.
On the issue of economic crimes, it borders between beyond reasonable doubt and balance of probability. So it falls in between.
Falls in between, okay. Yeah. Let leaders be focused, discharge and attend to the manifestos that they sold to Kenyans. Super Senator Ledama and Honorable Cherargei have been in the Senate, even in the former regime. What have they contributed towards lowering high costs of living?
A very good question. I think it's a very fair question. And I think it's important for Tony to understand that in terms of the Senate, our role is sort of like limited to oversighting county governments. I think that question would be better answered and given justice by the National Assembly, you know, because the National Assembly oversight national government. But he's got one point whereby we are responsible for increasing the debt ceiling, making it very, very difficult. I think now what we ought to do is to try and find a way that we can sit down with agencies like KRA and show them where the money is.
Because you know where the money is.
We know how the money is hidden.
You follow the money.
You know, so we need to follow the trail. So, and I think we can actually do that as legislators.
I think I agree largely with what he's saying. Is the fact that we have mechanisms on how to do follow-ups, like bringing motions, statements, like also making amendments to the law where need be, especially the Finance Act sometimes to introduce or to waive some of the taxes that are imposed on some of these. But you now are only limited because National Assembly has always argued on Article 110.3 on money bills. And I agree with Senator Ledama, the Supreme Court at least made away, Jeff, in removing the fact that we could only oversight national revenue. But we have now been given Osro's revenue. And Jeff, when I was the chair of JKLive, I led my colleagues to the Milimani law courts when National Assembly had passed 23 legislations and had been assented by the President without the concurrence of the Senate. So I agree with the question that he's asking, that the National Assembly should be referring some of these bills to our House so that we enrich and ensure if it touches something about cost of living, the cost of life and many others, it can be easy being regulated with all of us so that we take a collective responsibility. I think it is easier that way.
Senator Cherargei, this is for you. Monyendo Kevin says, kindly tell Senator Cherargei, does he believe in the next 60 days they will deliver in their first 100-day promise with this dilapidated economy? Do you believe? What's the plan?
I believe everything is possible. The goodness is Kenyans are hardworking. The environment is good. We now freedom is here. The political goodwill is there by the president and the government of the day. So I believe, Jeff, we can be able to fix the economy because it's about growth. You remember when Kibaki inherited the economy, and I agree with Senator Ledama. When they inherited the economy, it was less than 300 billion collected by KRA. By the time he was leaving, it was approaching 1 trillion of revenue. So they can be turned around. And I can tell Kenyans the days of Mwai Kibaki are coming. And the days of blessings, as the Bible says, because we are prayerful government, as you know, we normally pray daily, and I can see you have rosary, so you are joining us slowly. So it will change the lives that we have. So the better days are coming. Yes,
Senator Ledama, you were laughing a moment ago.
I'll let it pass.
Okay. Chester Nyanchika says, kindly ask the two senators what necessitated, look at this word, the change of nomenclature.
That's a biological word.
That's a very from minister to cabinet secretary. Does such improve on service delivery to one Nigeria?
Well, let me take it that. I think this is a philosopher. He's gone back to the days of Alexander, now the Great and Hamilton. I think the issue, the question that he's asking, so that I can be able to demystify it, is that why now? Why change from having cabinet secretaries who are professionals to politicians? You know, and I think that's what he's talking about, because he's talking about ministers to cabinet secretaries.
And delivery.
You know, and in terms of delivery. I think what we need to understand, what Kenyans need to appreciate, is that we have a presidential system of governance. And if we could go by our constitution and let the professionals carry out, be heads of those departments, they can be able to deliver better. But the problem we have in this country is that as politicians, we want to see some of our own, taking charge of cabinet or different ministries so that they can reward us with goodies. So that when you go see them, you know, they'll see this is another politician, they can support us.
Senator Cherargei, do you agree with that? Because there are more politicians and nominees in this administration.
You know, I thought it was just a basic English adjective, but it looks like Senator Ledama is a prophet. He looks beyond all that. But in any way, for the benefit of the discussion, you know, the ministry, the head is just a cabinet secretary. These are people, you know, you are dealing, when you are coming with policies and legislation intervention, you need public. I think it is important to have some ministries run by politicians, because these are politicians are professionals, like Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki. Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki is an academic scholar. He has been a majority leader. He was our deputy speaker. He has served as a senator. He has been a lecturer in my former university. So these are professionals. It doesn't mean that when you are a politician, even today, if Ledama Olekina, if in future, maybe wants to run executive, as he had indicated, when we were in camera, you will not say he cannot become an executive running a government simply because he was a politician. So we need to demystify this issue that politicians are people who do not go to school, are people who are lazy, they can't implement. Politicians also can lead these ministries. They know how to engage Wananchi. You remember the technocrats of President Uhuru. The reason President Uhuru's government used to resume bashing is because you remember some of the ministers who are technocrats used to refuse to appear before Parliament. Did they not know the role of Parliament?
I think, no, I disagree. I think, going back to Tony's question, he's only trying to investigate how much have we made any progress in terms of service delivery to the people, from a parliamentary system of government to a presidential system of governance. And in my view, I think with the current system of governance that we have, if we were to stick by the rule of law, if we are to allow, technocrats to be able to advise us, and rightfully, as my colleague has said, it is not only one person who is responsible.
Yes.
In fact, if you look at Article 179 of the Constitution, it talks about the executive authority of a county government being vested and exercised by the County Executive Committee, which comprises of the governor, the deputy governor, and 10 other CCs who are not politicians. In essence, I mean, just to demystify.
Right.
So really, we need to ask ourselves, do we gain? And this, Jeff, I don't think you're ready for this, because this now brings up another big debate in terms of what the president was proposing, where he's proposing to allow a stranger, and I call him a stranger because he's not recognized by the Constitution or he's not recognized by our standing orders, to be able to stand on the floor of the House when the Speaker is seated there and he's asked questions by the members of Parliament. So really, I think we need to go back to the Constitution. We look at Article 153, what it says. We look at the standing. Let's rule by the Constitution. The Constitution is a guiding principle.
I think you need to agree that under Article 153, an amendment of our standing orders, these are things we can amend.
No, we can't.
And CSS can come to answer questions.
Disagree.
Because the biggest disconnect, Jeff, has been on how to all some of these cabinets, because I've been a chair of a committee. Sometimes members like Senator Ledama Olekina ask something about human rights issue, abuses in Narok. But you can't have the Attorney General or the CS in charge of Constitution to come and answer the question, because so that the accountability is made easy. I don't know why the Azimio One Kenya Alliance colleagues are opposed to this. Because they don't want that accountability. Because we are running an
No, Jeff. You cannot.
We can amend the standing orders. We can look at Article 1.
What the president is inviting is an amendment of the Constitution through the back door. What the president is inviting with his proposals of bringing cabinet secretaries to the floor of the House is an introduction of the BBI proposal through the back door or implementation of the BBI. So really, that law, if you look at the Constitution, and Kenyans are not stupid, they can read, it is very clear. I think it's 153.4. It says clearly, cabinet secretary shall attend before a committee of the House, either National Assembly or the Senate, and respond. So if the president really wants the presence, or he wants his cabinet secretary to be able to respect the Constitution, he must read a riot act, because he's the executive. We are oversighting the executive. He must tell them, I don't want any bullshit. What I want is that if you are called by Senator Cherargei, probably he's going to be the chair of maybe legal or any other committee, if he calls you, you must go there. Because we have other mechanism of punishing them. And we've done that.
Okay, let's move on.
But when you look at that, okay.
Move on.
Yes.
Kip Kurui H. Duane, he says, I come from the Rift Valley, Uasin Gishu County in particular. I can confidently say we don't want GMOs.
Thank you, Kip Kurui. You're my friend.
He says, we, however, welcome the government's public participation and enlightenment about the same. I think
Don't I love the satire?
No.
Yes.
Illuminate them.
Yes.
Ahmed Rago says, this country requires policies, not GMOs.
Thank you.
We are approaching rainy seasons, and yet no single approach of harvesting the rainwater to grow maize, no irrigation plans, no research to come up with quick maturing maize, no research to come up with crops that require less water.
It's just speaking sense.
That is what the government intends to do.
And finally, Awilo Wilfred Marore says, ask Senator Cherargei whether he will support CS for Sports, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, as initiator of the Sports Act 2013, since he wanted to impose reforms on it back then in 2021. Sports Act.
You know, the issue of sports, Jeff, you should invite me because almost 80 to 90%, and you know, you have come to Kapsabet. Every morning, 5 a.m.,
he goes running.
They go running.
He goes.
What happened to you?
I don't know. I got an injury because of politics in 2017. But I was a very good runner.
80%.
Yeah, 80% of Nandi people,
yes,
or from North Rift, run. And you know, high altitude of Kiplagat in Iten and those important.
Yes.
You know, we have mismanaged the issue of sports in this country. You remember the sports fund? There was a time they used to remove money from sports fund to use for subsidy of fuel. That's why you saw Malkia strikers begging for money when they were in Brazil. So there is corruption, endemic corruption that needs to be addressed under the sport. And I hope the incoming CS nominee Ababu Namwamba will be ready so that we look at the Sports Act and address some of the challenges that we are facing, even football. You see, sometimes you see begging, it is very embarrassing. You see the sports fund, we should be talking about academies, and I'm happy the president has confirmed that the studies that are yet to be completed should be completed across the country so that it gives opportunity for young people to train. We look at how to ensure sports fund works for all of us. We also ensure, you remember the Rio scandal, and I think that one has set a precedent where some of the people have been convicted. And I hope we'll not take a big, because Jeff, it is so painful. You go and run 5 in the morning, when other people are doing morning glory, like Senator Ledama or Lekina and praying. Somebody somewhere comes and tells you, before I give you clearance to go and run in Boston or Chicago or in London, you must give me 10%. Imagine, Jeff, can you believe an athlete in Kapsabet has to board, I don't want to mention the Matatu because I am not marketing anybody, has to board a Matatu from Kapsabet all the way to Riada House to get clearance, to travel outside the country. Why don't we devolve to Kapsabet, to Iten, to Kisii, to Meru, to Narok, where you have a number of athletes that are world-renowned, so that it becomes easier, Chef. And those, I can tell you, the corruption in sports ministry. And I'm not afraid to go. We had a run-in with the outgoing CS over these matters. Yeah. And even Senator Ladama, I remember even on the issue, or the one that happened, is it Tokyo Olympics? Where and I don't mean to demean the Maasai Shukas, but you remember the only gift they went and received. They just wrapped them with Maasai Shukas. There is no even vehicles, and they're arriving at midnight. And these are people who are up country. You know, I'm a rural senator. Yes. You just drop my people in Nairobi, our Jew Barabara, you know, with the expressway. You at least provide a one-night stay before taking them to Eldoret or to Nandi. Right. So the problem we are facing in sports ministry, and you should invite me, is serious endemic corruption. And when it reaches opportune time, we shall unmask these people who are misusing and abusing our athletes. We want Omanyala to continue doing very well. I've seen he has gotten a scholarship. Yes. We hope that the scholarship can be improved. We want Eliud Kipchoge. And by the way, finally, so that my brother can come in, is we need to use also sportsmen and women as brand. Why should we brand Kenya to go and open a shop somewhere in London, millions of shillings? Why don't we talk with Eliud Kipchoge, tell him to wear a shirt, say, visit Kenya, the way Rwanda has done. Correct. And we can do a lot of marketing. And you remember, by the way, surprisingly, Eliud Kipchoge's shoe that he used to run the other day in Berlin is now, we have to go and pay to see. Me personally, I see Kipchoge daily. But we have to go and pay. Why don't we promote sports tourism? And I think Narok and Nandi, because Narok is also a good place, they have good runners, we can benefit. But that is a conversation I hope
Jeff,
the incoming can have.
I think we should, I think Ruto should appoint Cherargei as the CAS for sport. He has said everything that he needed to say about sport. So I can only agree with him. I'm actually giving him credit. You know, learn to accept credit when you are given credit. But I think there are a few other issues, Jeff, which are very, very pertinent. And I think Kenyans ought to know this, that there's a lot of talk about the sale of parastatals in this country, like Kenya Pipeline Corporation, you know, and that will be completely ill-advised. because Kenya Pipeline Corporation is a state corporation. And if you traverse this country from Mombasa all the way to Kisumu, you'll find the properties owned by that entity. It will be wrong for the privatization, is a commission, to allow such state agency to be sold. Because we know they were prepared by a few people who want to be able to swim in the dollars to be able to sell them and buy them for cheap. We know what we need to do now, and this is what this government should be telling us. They should be telling us their plans to revive National Oil Corporation, their plans to revive Kenya, to be able to continue supporting Kenya Pipeline Corporation. When you look at Kenya Pipeline Corporation, it's a state corporation that has been actually even loaning money to Treasury. They have been getting a lot of money. So really, we need to be aware of this. And what this President Ruto's government can do is to be open. Put it out there for everybody. But if people are preparing to be able to loot or rape this economy, it will be very, very, very wrong. Yeah. We can talk about sports, we can talk about all these things, but the truth of the matter is that we have a lot at stake in these state corporations, and Kenyans out there must say no. Let us be, I like the last tweet that you read, that let them carry out public participation so that we can enlighten them. I think when it comes to the issue of selling state corporations such as Kenya Pipeline Corporation, it should be taken to the entire public for them to be able to agree.
All right, I'll let you have the last word. We have to wrap up. Mm-hmm. Go on.
Under Article 10 of the Constitution, or National Values and Principles of Governance, one of the key tenements of governance is public participation. By the way, if you have noticed, Ledama, he has wanted to paint the government as if we will always, or the government will always make decision without the public. Even under Article 118 of the Constitution, Parliament must do public participation. And you remember, Jeff, there are many cases that have been thrown out of court because of lack of public participation, including the chief administrative secretaries. Secondly, on the issue of SCAC, these state corporations, I don't think the government will just work one day and want to privatize. There is the Privatization Act, the Privatization Commission, but the question that we should ask ourselves as a country, KQ, for example, always we bail it out. We always give money. They are making losses. So what should we do? Should we take 4 billion, 5 billion loss, give it to KQ while the hustlers are suffering?
We should jail the people who are tasked with the fiduciary responsibility.
That is why I'm coming. How did you know I was coming there? So, for example, KQ, we are bailing out daily. You pay an air ticket, you travel to New York, I know you like America, yes, where you have lived in, then somebody tells you have made a loss. It is because there is endemic corruption, for example, in KQ, where we spend 4 billion, which we should be using in maybe even giving the money for Hustlers Fund, for example, or even ensuring that we add shareable revenue to counties. But KQ is cobbling money. So what should we do? I agree with Senator Ledamo, like if government, and we have of this thinking, that, for example, if we have to participate, sell out there, offload some shares for Kenyans to buy out there through IPOs, initial public offers, then we can agree on how to go forward. Because companies or parastatals like KQ, or where the shareholding of government is high, and we still bail out, we must stop. And I agree that the individuals within KQ, and even you are the deputy president, by the way, you had the honor of interviewing him in his Madeira home, that KQ and its management must be held accountable. And I agree with him that some individuals within KQ, they must be investigated, they must fail full force of the law. I don't want to say they must be jailed, because I'm not a court of law. I'm not an investigator.
But you're a lawyer.
But I'm a lawyer.
I think, Jeff, to be honest, what I'd like to hear this country, or rather what I'd like to hear this government talking about right now, is the president should not only talk, but he should walk the talk. His speech during the opening of Parliament, there are so many things that he said, but it was mere talk. If we are going to be able to devolve the issue of electricity, for instance, right now we should be engaging county governments to be able to see how we can have mini grids in those counties, and that will be able to make things much cheaper. When you're talking about increasing production, You know, let us engage people. Let us have this conversation. Let us go to county governments. And lastly, what this president can do, which can be able to help this country, is to ensure that all devolved functions that were devolved by Schedule 4 of the Constitution are fully devolved. There's no reason as to why money should remain in the national government, yet the functions are in the county governments. Right. And finally, and this is, you know, with all the respect that I have, I think the most important thing is for us not to continue making statements out there which are populist statements, but to sit down, shut up, go work, let your good work, you know, be praised by the people, but not the president said this today, the deputy president said this today. It's not necessary. We are no longer campaigning. We want to see action now. You know, we want to see people living a better life. You know, you talked about the issue. And KRA, I'm glad that the president said that he's going to change from Kenya Revenue Authority to Kenya Revenue Services. You know, talk to Kenyans. You know, county governments, there's so many loopholes where money is disappearing, and we're happy to show you where they are. I'm sure Senator Cherargei would be happy to show them where the money is heading. You know, so really, no, he's a member of the
SIPA. Yes, I can assist.
So really, you can be able to assist. For 5 years, this gentleman sat, scrutinized documents. Yes. I'm sure you know a thing about corruption.
Of course,
where the money goes.
I can. There's reports that we have written. Finally, by the way, KRA, are you aware, Jeff, the ETR machine that have been issued by KRA? Right. They are selling at 49,000.
The new ones. Why?
The new ones. Why so expensive? And you know, you have a kiosk, for example, in Narok or somewhere.
They can't afford.
They can't afford.
49,000.
So how do you sell it at 49,000 an ETR machine? Yet you want to improve revenue collection. So I agree with him that we must relook some of these, because even KRA, by the way, the question that Samia Suluhu Hassan asked when she took over Tanzania, he asked the TRA of Tanzania that if you go and harass that tax-paying person, that person runs away, you close. You lose the employees and you lose the tax. So where will you come next year? So I think I agree we need to be creative, Jeff, and ensure that we put in place necessary mechanisms. But I want to confirm to Senator Ledama and all Kenyans who are watching, in the next 6 months, we shall see and feel the real change. Even Senator Ledama will start smiling.
You know what? We're going to hold you to account from that. 6 months from now,
okay,
you're back on the...
And I'll tell you, nothing will happen.
Yes.
And we'll see.
So long as he comes with my milk.
As long as he comes with the old...
Anytime. Thank you, Jeff.
Senator Ledama,
yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, for having us. Thank you for having us.
Yes. And we need to keep talking. Like you said, we need to keep talking.
Correct.
And having a conversation.
Yes.
There's nothing like public participation, folks. Getting everybody involved.
Correct.
It's called all hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
Watching the president.
Well, you should just sing that.
Thank you so much, folks, for being a part of JKLive. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLive. Good night.
It's just good you have a rosary, so I hope
God bless Kenya.
You'll put us in prayers.
Just
my country.
Right here.
He just said God.
God bless Kenya.